Hey everyone, welcome to the NRL Round 21 Betting Trends Preview. My name is Reese, and in this video I'm going to go through all 8 upcoming games this weekend. I'm going to look at the stats, go through the betting trends, who's been winning, who's been covering, have their games been going over or under the totals, and all the information you need to know to make the best betting decisions to profit this weekend on the NRL. But before we get into this week's games, let's quickly recap what happened last week. So the round kicked off with the Dolphins beating the Cowboys 43-24 in a very high-scoring game. Sharks beat the Roosters in the early game on Friday 31-18, and then the Panthers beat the Rabbitohs by 20 points later that night. Raiders came from down at halftime to beat the Eels 40-16. The Bulldogs got over the top with a late try against the Dragons 20-18. The Seagulls beat the Storm with a late penalty goal 18-16. And the Tigers with a late field goal, they came back to beat the Titans. And then Warriors 20-15 thanks to Laker Halasima's individual try off the charge down field goal to win the game there for the Warriors. And if you watched the try score video and you had Halasima to score a try, then that was a very good finish to the round overall. This week's games, we had the first 4 were all 13 plus margins, and then the final 4 games were all decided by 5 or less, and 3 of those 4 games were decided by 2 or less, and at the end of the day it was almost all 4 because the Knights were leading by 1 point as the siren went against the Warriors. Home teams won 6 of the 8 games. Home teams covered the spread in 5 of the 8 games. So that now means home teams this season have covered the spread in 85 games, and away teams have only covered the spread in 63 games. Favorites won 7 of the 8 games. The only underdog to win was the Seagulls against the Melbourne Storm. There were obviously a couple of close calls. The Bulldogs game, a very close call. The Tigers, Titans, and the Warriors, Knights, all very close calls for underdogs. Favorites covered the spread just in the 4 of the 8 games. This season, underdogs have covered the spread 80 times and favorites only 68 times. Favorites covered the first 4 games and the underdogs covered the final 4 games of that round. 5 games went under the total, 3 games went over the total. This season, 81 games have gone under, 67 games have gone over. Now, looking at the ladder at the end of round 20, Raiders sit a game clear on top ahead of the Bulldogs for a game clear of the Storm and Warriors. The top 4 is 2 games clear of the Broncos on 26 points. Then you have the Panthers now in the top 6, followed by the Seagulls and Sharks rounding out the top 8 on 24 points. Dolphins and Roosters both a game outside the top 8. And then the Dragons, Tigers, both 3 games outside the top 8. So as it stands right now, there's basically 10 teams in contention now. 11th and below all basically ruled out for top 8 chances, barring any crazy results through the rest of the season, but extremely unlikely. Now looking ahead to this week, the first game, Thursday night, Roosters against the Melbourne Storm. Melbourne are favourites, $1.45 minus 6.5, and the total is 46.5. Melbourne come into this off the 2-point loss against the Seagulls, and the Roosters come into this off a 13-point loss against the Sharks as well. Roosters have now lost 2 of their last 3 games. Storm were on a 6-game win streak going into that game against the Seagulls last week, and Melbourne haven't lost back-to-back games since round 2 and round 3 back in 2023. For this game, the Storm have a really good record over the Roosters. They've won 11 of the past 12 against them, including the past 6. And they've also won 4 of the past 6 by at least a 14-point margin. These sides last met in the prelim finals last season. Storm going through to the grand final by winning 48-18. Nelson Asofa Solomona was sin bin in the very first minute of that game. And the Roosters did score a try during that period. They got the first try of the game, but Melbourne then went and scored 4 tries before halftime to lead 22-6. Roosters did get the first 2 tries of the second half and lead themselves back into contention. They got it back to 22-18, but then the Storm ran in 4 more tries, including 2 late ones to Cam Munster to win the game by 30 points. Jerome Hughes scored a hat-trick. Cam Munster and Ryan Papenhuyzen both got doubles. The Storm had 52% possession. They completed at 87%, so near enough to perfect numbers. Roosters, as we generally expect for them, they make mistakes, make errors, and lower completion rate. For this game, the Storm had plus 220 run meters, 9-4 line breaks. Then as we go through missed tackles, The Roosters at 36, slightly high number, but then 12-8 error count. Roosters won the penalty count 6-5. Set restarts were only 3-2, and then obviously the one sin bin. So Storm definitely dominated the attack and obviously running in 48 points. You're going to win games in that situation. For me personally, I really can't see Melbourne losing this game and making it back-to-back losses. There is definitely a lot on the line for the Roosters based on where they're sitting on the ladder, that one game outside the top 8. Following this for the Roosters, they have the Seagulls and Dolphins and Bulldogs. So it's a pretty tricky run home. They really can't afford to lose this game, but Storm just don't lose back-to-back games, and I think they'll get over the line and win. In terms of Storm covering, it's not the greatest bet this season. They've failed to cover 8 of their last 12 games. Roosters is not really going that well. They've failed to cover 4 of their last 6, but I think the key here is the Storm numbers when they're off a loss are just extremely good, and in this situation that makes them very hard to beat. They're also on the season the far better attack and defense than the Roosters, so just need to get it done on the road, which they have been a little bit vulnerable this season, but with them losing last week, I think that really seals the deal there for the Melbourne Storm. And Roosters weren't really that impressive against the Sharks. They did make a lot of errors in that game, which was costly. They certainly can't afford to do that against the Storm. The total is 46.5. The last 4 games for the Roosters have all gone over. The Storm, 3 of their last 4 have gone under. 6 of the past 8 between the Roosters and Storm have gone under. Obviously, the Storm ran in 48 points last time they met. For me, I'd lean towards the overs in this game, mainly due to the fact that the Storm do concede more points in their road games. At home this season, they're only conceding 14.4 a game, where in away games, they're conceding 23.1. Their game total averages on the road is also just a tiny bit higher. This is all information out of the NRL bet finders, which you can access through the link in the description. So at the total of 46.5, leaning towards the over. The first game on Friday night, the Cowboys versus Dragons. North Queensland are favourites. They're $1.56 minus 4.5, and the total here is 47.5. The Cowboys have a really good record. They've won the past 5 against the Dragons, all by at least 12 points. They've also won 4 of the past 5 at home versus St. George. Last time they met was all the way back in round 3 last season, so it's been quite some time. The Cowboys started $1.42 favourites, and they won that game 46-24. Looking at what happened in that game, the Cowboys scored an early try through Murray Tulagi, who's out for this game. The Dragons responded. Zach Lomax, Terrell Sloan, and Kyle Flanagan all running in 3 quick tries. The Cowboys responded though with 2 tries of their own before halftime. It was a 40-point total score in the first half. Cowboys leading by 4, 22-18 at halftime. Then in the second half, the Cowboys scored the first 4 tries of this half to build a dominant lead and go on and win the game. Cowboys 56% possession. They completed at 86% compared to the Dragons 81%. Had plenty more of the ball, an extra 500 meters, but also close to 50 extra runs for the game. 7-5 line breaks. Down in the errors, Dragons slightly more errors, 10-8, but Dragons also won the penalty count 7-4 overall. But overall, a dominant win by the Cowboys, making less errors and converting their ball in attacking position into points. This season, how these teams are coming into this game isn't great. You've got 2 real out-of-form sides. The Cowboys have lost 6 of their last 7. The only win against the Gold Coast Titans, where they won 30-24. And the Dragons, they've lost 5 of their last 6. The only win against the Eels, 34-20. Both these teams, their only win in the last month and a half have been against the 2 sides right towards the bottom of the ladder. Dragons, though, their last 3 losses have all been by 7 points or less, and they have covered the spread in 7 of their last 9. Cowboys also, they've covered 3 of their last 4. For me, just right now, I can't take $1.56 in terms of the Cowboys. I think they're a little bit too short. This is one of the games where I'd lean towards the Dragons at the plus 4.5. Would like plus 6.5 to be that little bit more confident, just get a slightly better price. I think Cowboys here are really being priced on their record historically against the Dragons and the fact that they're at home. But the way these teams are traveling, there's not really a great deal between them. The Dragons will be disappointed. Like, they had the Bulldogs all but beaten last week and then just gave up a soft try in the corner. right towards the end of the game. But yeah, really could have gotten over the line there and won that game. It'll be interesting how they come through that. It can go either way in this situation. They can come out and play and try and atone for that, or they can have a complete letdown performance because they're still thinking about that game they lost last week. But I think the Dragons, they can definitely keep this close, lean towards them as the underdog. Also, definitely like the try bet here. I don't really see this game being a major blowout in terms of a margin. Dragons games this season have generally always been close, and they're also the better attack and defense when you match up these teams on the season. The total is 47.5. We've seen 6 of the past 7 between the Cowboys and Dragons go over. Last time they met, there was 70 points scored, but that was over a year ago now. Cowboys, 9 of their last 12 games have gone over. Dragons, 8 of their last 11 have gone over, including 5 of the last 6. With that in mind, I'm definitely leaning towards the over here. I do think the number's pretty accurate. I made a fair total for this game, 47. So even though the current stats don't back it up, we've got 2 bottom 5 defenses here, teams that are capable of scoring points when they are on. Cowboys have been a bit hit and miss, but they have scored at least 20 in 3 of their last 4 games after a few lean weeks. And then for the Dragons, they've scored at least 18 points in each of their last 5 games. So I think no matter what, we should go very close to this number if it doesn't go over the total in the end of the day. Broncos versus Eels. Brisbane are $1.22 favorites, minus 13.5, and the total is 48.5. Broncos, they've won the past 4 against Parramatta, and at Suncorp Stadium, they've won their last 3 there. Eels have lost their past 4. Last time these sides met was round 25 last season. Broncos as $1.30 favourites at home, winning 30-24. The Eels started that game extremely well. They scored 3 tries in the first 10 minutes to jump out to a 16-0 lead. Broncos got 2 tries back close to halftime, which brought the margin back to 16-12, and then went on and scored the first 3 tries in the second half to lead 30-18. The Eels got a late try here through Sean Lane, which got it back to a 6-point margin and a 1-score game, but the Broncos were able to hold on and win. The stats for this game, the Eels had slightly more possession, but the Broncos completed better at 84%. Eels with overall more of the ball and slightly more run meters, but the Broncos made 6-2 line breaks. Eels also missed 40 tackles. Parramatta threw the ball around quite a lot with the 17 offloads. Errors were tied at 13 all. Parramatta won the penalty count 5-4, and the Broncos won the set restart 3-1. But ultimately, the difference here, the amount of line breaks and missed tackles conceded by the Eels cost them the game after a good start. You really have to play the full 80 minutes to beat Brisbane at Suncorp. Brisbane come into this game off the bye, so they've had 12 days rest, and the Eels, they're on a 6-day turnaround, but it's a back-to-back road game situation for them. Playing down in Canberra last week where they lost to the Raiders and now have to travel up to Brisbane. It's a really tough spot here for the Eels, particularly going against a team off the bye as well. Purely based on the situational factor for this game and the travel and rest leading in, Broncos should win this game just based on the back of that. Parramatta, they've lost 3 straight, all by at least 14 points, and they've only won 1 of their last 6, which was against the Titans, where they won 36-20. Brisbane, they've won and covered 5 straight prior to the bye. 2 of those wins were against the Titans. The other 3, though, all against top 8 sides. So they have a good mixture, and I expect Brisbane to win this game and likely win it comfortably in front of their home fans. Personally, would be surprised if they didn't cover the 13.5. Probably won't lay that many points, just because Brisbane have a habit of just winning games by about 2 tries, but this is a game where they really could put the Eels away and win by 20 plus. So I'll look for other ways to play it, but I'm definitely expecting the Broncos to win. The total is 48.5. 6 of the past 7 between Brisbane and Parramatta have gone over the total. Broncos, though, there's 3 games leading in, have all gone under. Eels, 4 of their last 5 have gone over. Right now, I'm not super keen on the total for this game. I think it just comes down to whether Brisbane score 36 points. If they're able to run in 6 tries and do something like that, then the game will go over. If Brisbane only score 20, 24 points, then it's going to be an under game. So I'd prefer to play the Broncos team total if I'm interested in the over, as I think it's likely going to come down to Brisbane's ability to score. Parramatta right now are ranked 15th defensively, so they have the 3rd worst defense in the comp. They conceded 40 points last week, and there's obviously the chance they do a similar thing again this week. And that a lot of those points came in the second half as well. So it's not like it's spread throughout the game, so teams can run in points quickly against them. The Warriors versus Titans is the first game on Saturday. New Zealand are $1.36 favourites, -9.5, and the total is 48.5. This is an interesting matchup because Warriors obviously pretty sure to win this game, but the Titans have won 5 of the past 6 against them, and they've also won the past 2 against the Warriors over in New Zealand. Last season they met in round 16. New Zealand were $1.50 favourites on the Gold Coast, but the Titans won that game 66-6. Now, looking at what happened in that game, Gold Coast running in 11 tries to 1 in what was their best performance of the season. They led 30-0 at halftime, 5 converted tries, and then scored another 6 converted tries in the second half. Roger Tuivasa-Sheck was sent to the sin bin. The Titans scored 3 of their 11 tries during that period, and the Warriors got their sole try through Tamari Martin during that period as well. Gold Coast, 54% possession, completed at 87%. Warriors just at 69%, an extra 750-ish run meters. And the average set for the Titans was 52.5 meters and under 40 for the Warriors. Offloads were even. See, not a huge differential in the amount of tackles that needed to be made, but the Warriors missing 45. They also made 13 errors, which this season hasn't been their tendency to do that. Titans only made the 7 errors, so near perfect game by the Titans. Probably statistically wise and possession wise not entitled to win by 60 points, but still with these numbers would have been a dominant win regardless. Now, Warriors, they come into this game with back-to-back wins since their bye. Those wins have been against the Knights and against the West Tigers. The Titans, they've lost 12 of their last 14 and also failed to cover the spread in 3 of their last 4. I really can't see, Warriors, they're sitting 2 games clear on the Broncos. If Broncos are likely to beat the Eels on Friday night, that'll bring it back to a 1 game. They need to beat the Titans to keep that 2-game margin. And as much as it's going to be very tough for them in finals without Metcalf and Mitch Barnett, if they give themselves a double chance, they at least get the chance to potentially get through to a prelim final. But to get there, they have a pretty easy run home considering, and this is a game that they definitely can't afford to drop to make sure they can hold on to that top 4 spot. So expect the Warriors to win here at home. Their previous home game against the Tigers, they played really well. Tigers came out and won, albeit by 1 point against the Titans following that. So there's a good little form line there as well. So expect Warriors to win here. It has historically been a close matchup for the past 5, decided by 10 points or less. I'm not super keen on that trend. I just prefer looking at the Warriors to win here. 6 of the past 8 head-to-head have gone under the total. The total is 48.5, which is fairly high. A couple of points higher than I was expecting. The Warriors, 4 of their last 6 games have gone over. The Titans, their last 2 games have gone under. For me, I'd lean towards the under purely based on what this number is. I was expecting 46.5, maybe even 45.5 at a stretch. So I'm surprised they've gone up 48.5. There is obviously the chance Warriors just run in plenty of points. The Titans are the worst defensive team in the comp, conceding about 30 points a game. Warriors, though, rank 5th. They're actually pretty good defensively and should be able to shut down the Titans for the most part, enough for them to win the game. For this game to go over the total, the Warriors basically need to score 30 points. So I think that is your line. The Titans, they'll likely get 3 tries and around that 18 mark like we see them do basically every single week. They're a team that is very consistent in that manner. They generally always score 16 to 20 points, and that's why for this to go over, I think the Warriors need 30 points. They'll also need about 30 to cover the spread as well. Keep that in mind when you're looking at your bets. There may be a better option in terms of taking the Warriors team total. Definitely do some deep dive into that later in the week, close to the game times. I do additional previews in the members area where I go through everything I'm exactly betting once I've locked in my selections for the games. Panthers versus Tigers. The Penrith are $1.24 favourites, -12.5, and the total is 46.5. Penrith, they've won 4 of the past 5 against the Tigers, but the Tigers have covered 5 of the past 6 against the Panthers, and 3 of the past 4 have been decided by 4 or less. They met earlier this season, round 14, and the Panthers were 10.5-point favorites, $1.27, and won that game by 4 points. So the Tigers covered the spread there, but lost the game. This is that matchup. Thomas Jenkins scored a hat-trick for the Panthers, and how this game kind of played out, the teams went basically try for try. Penrith scoring first, Stafford Toa went over shortly after. Sneer Taruvas then scored, and Thomas Jenkins got that try back just before halftime, so they went in locked at 10-all. In the second half, the Panthers got an early penalty goal in the 54th minute, which put them slightly in front, and then the converted try gave them an 8-point margin. Tigers score through Gerald Skelton in the 69th minute. It wasn't converted, so still a 4-point margin, and Penrith, through their defense, were able to hold on. The Tigers had slightly more ball, but Penrith at an 87% completion rate makes them very hard to beat with their defensive numbers. They also had 7-2 line breaks in their favour. Tigers missed 39 tackles, which is far too many against Penrith, and they also made 10-8 errors. Tigers won the penalty count 7-6. There was only 2 set restarts in this game. For the matchup coming up on Saturday, Penrith, they've won 6 in a row. They've only conceded 11.3 points per game on average during this period. They've covered in their last 4 straight. They've only conceded an average of 11.3 points during this 6-game win streak. And that's been the hallmark of their success, of winning the 4 straight premierships. And it's also starting to look like they've got that defense back up. One of the top sides. Tigers, they've won 2 of their last 3. A 1-point win over the Titans, a 2-point win over the Roosters, split by the loss against the Warriors over in New Zealand. 5 of their last 7 games, including the one against the Panthers, have been decided by 4 or less. And they've also failed to cover the spread in 3 of the last 4, which is funny considering now they've started winning games, then they're not covering the spread. But that's how you have to look at all these different factors when it comes to betting and approaching games. Don't just go with all teams to cover because they haven't been covering, or vice versa. For this game, Penrith should be winning. They rested Cleary and Isaiah Yeo in the game last week, where they were able to get the win over the Rabbitohs 30-10, and they're expected to be back for this. Tigers got that real feel-good win last week. They scored the late try and then kicked the field goal to beat the Titans, and I doubt they can back it up. They'll have to play a lot better to beat Penrith this week. So expect Penrith to win this game and win it fairly comfortably. I think we'll see a bigger than a 4-point margin that we saw just over a month ago. The total is 46.5 currently. The past 11 between these two sides have all gone under the total. The Panthers, 6 of their last 7 have gone under. The Tigers, 4 of their last 6 have gone under as well. With this total at 46.5, I'm definitely leaning towards the unders. I made a fair total 44.5 for this game, so I'm surprised we're at 46.5, particularly when you factor in all these trends as well. So Penrith to win and like the under. Rabbitohs versus Sharks. The Sharks $1.23 favorites, minus 13.5, and the total is 46.5. The Sharks have won the past 4 versus South Sydney and covered in 3 of those 4. And the past 5 games, they've all been decided by 9 to 15 points. So we basically always see 2-try margin between these two teams. They met back in round 3 this season. Sharks were $1.15 favorites, minus 16.5, and won that game by 15 points, 27-12. Looking through what happened in that game, the Sharks scored twice in the first 8 minutes. Nico Hines and Brendan Nickera both scoring. And then they scored a couple more tries through Kale Iro and William Kennedy in the 20th and 29th minute. Sharks went into halftime leading 20-0. Then they also got the first try of the second half. So they had a 26-0 lead before Rabbitohs hit the scoreboard, scoring 2 tries in a 5-minute period there to at least get on the scoreboard, and then a late field goal for Braden Trindle. 57% possession, 75% completion rate for the Sharks. 610 post-contact meters. Rabbitohs were kept to under 400, and also about 600 differential in run meters with 30 extra runs for the Sharks. Line break 6-4, and surprise Sharks didn't make more, to be fair, considering the Rabbitohs missed 48 tackles. We'll see how they missed 48 and had 21 ineffective. So a really poor defensive performance. Both teams made similar amount of errors, Rabbitohs making 1 more. Sharks won the penalty count 6-5, and they also had 2 set restarts and didn't give up any. Sharks, they're on the fringe of the top 8. They've got the Dolphins and Roosters chasing them. This is a game I don't think they can lose, particularly with the Dolphins having the bye this week. That margin's going to close again, and the Roosters will already have played against the Melbourne Storm, even though I think Melbourne will have won. If the Roosters happen to win that game, this is even more important for the Sharks. A game that they can't afford to drop. They have a fairly comfortable run home. They should still be able to hold on and get a spot inside the 8 and play in that first week of the finals, but they can't afford to drop this game if that's going to happen. They're by far the better attacking side and slightly better defensive side, and defensively they've been a little bit better recently, and they've been able to slow down the Dolphins and Roosters over their past 2 games, which they've won both. And those teams are really good attacking sides and have plenty of points in them. So for the Sharks to be able to do that, there's positive signs from them from a defensive perspective, and can't see the Rabbitohs scoring enough to beat them if the Sharks hold up those defensive numbers. Rabbitohs, they've lost 7 straight. They've conceded 24 plus in each. I've spoken about this previously. Basically, if you can score 24 points against the Rabbitohs, you'll beat them. They've conceded that every single time they've lost, and they've only conceded it once when they've won. They won that game 25-24. So if Sharks think they'll get 24 points and go on and win this game. Their last 3 losses, the Rabbitohs, have all been by at least 18 points. So we're seeing a slightly lower spread than we saw earlier this year. And to be fair, I wouldn't be surprised if the Sharks were to go on and cover this one, but definitely like them to win this game and win it comfortably. The total is 46.5. 3 of the past 4 head-to-head have gone under the total. The Rabbitohs, their last 2 games have gone under. The Sharks, 6 of their last 8 have gone over. Right now, I don't really have a strong opinion on this total. I think it is about right. Maybe 1 point too high. So on a statistical perspective, a slight lean towards the unders, but not with a huge amount of confidence. I just think the Rabbitohs will struggle to score here. Previously against the Sharks, they've scored 12, 6, 22, 16 in their last 4 games, going back towards the end of the 2023 season. So like the Sharks to win comfortably and very slightly in towards the unders. First game on Sunday, the Raiders are at home again against Newcastle, and they are favourites $1.25, minus 12.5, and the total is 44.5. The Knights have won 4 of the past 6 versus the Raiders, and they've also covered 8 of the past 11. But these sides met just back in round 17 in Newcastle. The Raiders were $1.47 favourites, didn't cover the spread, but won by 4 points. And this game was really not long ago, basically a month ago, so it's very easy to remember. The Raiders, they scored 3 tries to 0 in the first half, led 16-0. The Knights got the first try of the second half to at least get on the board. Jed Stewart's then scores shortly after that, and the Raiders were leading 22-6. Knights got a couple of late tries during this final 15 minutes, and then with this Schiller try, it really set up a close game over those final 5 minutes. But the Raiders were able to hold on and win, and would have obviously been disappointing if they had a loss after leading 16-0 at halftime. That game was played in wet conditions. Still, the fact they got to 40 points is proof that there is points between these two sides. 50% possession each. Raiders completed slightly better. They made slightly more meters. Knights led the line breaks 5-4, which you can't often say for their games this season, particularly against good attacking sides as well. Raiders 14-6 offloads. Knights did very well at shutting down the Raiders kicking game with a 90% kick defusal rate. Knights did miss 39 tackles, so the fact that they gave up 4 line breaks from that is very good, especially with 23 ineffective tackles as well. They covered extremely well. Don't know if they'll be able to do that again this week. Errors, penalties, all fairly even. Knights did have 6 set restarts to 4. For this game, I can't see Canberra losing at home. They come into this off a big win against Eels. They've also won 8 in a row, looking to keep that going and make it 9. They've won 13 of their last 14 overall. Only covered in 1 of their last 4 games, but the Knights, they've lost 3 straight, starting with that loss against the Raiders, but have covered the spread in 5 of their last 6. With a double-digit spread, there is a chance Newcastle can keep it close, but for me, I couldn't take that and back that with confidence. I think the Raiders are a side that's capable of quickly overcoming that handicap and winning by more if they're on. Raiders will need to be at their absolute best. The way they lost that game against the Warriors, they're in that similar spot to the Dragons, where it's a potential letdown game following, or you can back it up with a good performance. In my opinion, Dragons are the ones more capable of backing it up with a good performance. The way Newcastle lost that game when they First charge down the field goal, then Warriors missed the penalty goal, then they charged down another field goal, and then still give up a try the way they did. That's a very heartbreaking way for them to lose. It's not the ideal game here for Newcastle now to go out to Canberra and try and win. So expect the Raiders to win dominantly and keep staying on the top of the ladder. The total is 44.5. The Raiders, 4 of their last 6 games have gone over. 15 of their 18 games this season have gone under. 5 of the last 6 head-to-head have gone under. The total was 42.5 in wet conditions on Newcastle. There was 40 points scored and very close, like that could have easily gone over the number. So with a slightly higher total, I agree with them moving this up. The numbers and also some of the trends tell me this game will go under, but just part of me feels like the Raiders can score points and score them quickly, and I think that makes this total at 44.5 very vulnerable. So I'm probably going to stay away from the total at this stage, particularly with an afternoon game as well. And then the final game of the round, Bulldogs against the Sea Eagles. The Bulldogs are $1.62 favourites, -3.5, and the total is 43.5. Manly have a very good record against the Bulldogs. They've won 11 of the past 12. And the Bulldogs' only win was by 1 point, which was back in round 25, 2022. Bulldogs winning as $1.45 favourites, 21 points to 20. But Manly, they've covered the spread in the past 5, 3 of those as underdogs. They haven't played since the final series last season, where the Seagulls eliminated the Bulldogs in week 1. Scoring 24 points to 22. Bulldogs led 16-12 at halftime. They scored 3 of their 4 tries in the first half. Seagulls only scoring the 2 tries during that first half. But then Tolu Cole try in the 71st minute and converted by Ruben Garrick put the Seagulls in front with just under 10 to go, and they were able to hold on and win. Possession was even 50 each. The Bulldogs completed 85%, so it's just slightly better. They had slightly more meters. 4 line breaks to 3 in favor of the Seagulls, but the Bulldogs missed 36 tackles. The defensive numbers for this game as well. The Bulldogs missed 36 tackles. The Seagulls still made 10 errors to 6. So we're able to just get over the line and win this game even with more mistakes, nearly double the amount of errors as the Bulldogs. Now, coming into this game, the Bulldogs, they've won 2 in a row. Each of their last 5 games have been decided by 6 or less, both wins and losses. They've led at halftime in 5 straight, but failed to cover the spread in all of them. The Seagulls, they've won 3 in a row and covered in all 3 games. Obviously, the best of those wins was beating the Storm last week. This is a game where I think there's a little bit too big of a difference between the teams in the odds. I think the value is with Manly. Not really due to the fact they beat Melbourne last week. It's more due to the fact that I haven't really been impressed with the Bulldogs, particularly from an attacking perspective. You can move past them to scoring 6 points against Penrith, but last week against the Dragons, they only scored 20 points. Against the Cowboys, they only scored 12. Against the Broncos, 18 points. And then the game against Penrith. That's their last 4 games. They haven't scored over 20 points during that period. And 3 of those teams have all been in the bottom half defensively in terms of points conceded. And particularly their last 2, the Dragons and Cowboys, they're both bottom 4 teams in terms of points conceded. So the fact they've only gotten 2 to 3 tries against those teams, that really concerns me. Against the Seagull side, that is actually very good defensively. They rank in the top 4. They also give up the least number of points in first halves, which is where Bulldogs have been stronger. So of all underdogs this week, Seagulls is probably the one that I give the biggest chance of winning, and so I definitely like them at the $2.30, and we can get this out to plus 4.5. That would be really good as well. The total is 43.5. The past 3 between these 2 sides have gone over, but that goes against their trends for this season. The last 5 have all gone under for the Bulldogs, and 11 of the last 12 for the Seagulls have gone under. So with that in mind, slight lean towards the under here. I think both teams will struggle to score somewhat. I think if this goes over, it's only going to go just over. I doubt we'll see a shootout in this game. Bulldogs' attack isn't clicking at all at the moment, and the Seagulls should be able to shut it down. And the Seagulls don't have a huge number of points in them. They're not a top attacking side, but they are able to get to that 22, 24 points mark fairly consistently. But the issue with the Manly is their inconsistency. Like, they can be very good one week and very poor the next, so that's the factor you're taking in. But if both teams to show up similar to what we expect from them. I think this is a very close game. You could also look at the try bet here, either team by 1 to 12. I think that's a very good play as well. So that's how we'll look at closing the round. The thing for the Bulldogs is their biggest motivation for this game is to get revenge on the Seagulls who eliminated them last season. So that's an angle you could take there for the Bulldogs based off a motivational factor. But overall, that's how I'm looking at betting on round 21. All my final bets are in the NRL bet finders, which you can access through the link in the description. And that's where I also post additional previews, and you can use all the research tools with all the stats, the team performances, what they average in different situations, home, away, day, night, when they're a favorite, when they're an underdog. You can use all that data to make really good bets, or you can just follow my plays when I've done the research for you. So definitely check that out. Thanks guys for watching. The try scorer preview will be out soon, going through all the try scorers for this weekend, so stay tuned for that. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any videos for the rest of the season.